Hello, 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 folks. Welcome back to Holding Space on Substack. The subscription followers are here back with me. And if you are coming from Spotify or YouTube, it's Enya. Everyone needs you always. And the reason why we have two names is because, how do we expand to simply explain this topic? So we're always thinking about, yes, holding space is an important concept. Like, how are you showing up inside yourself when you focus on your inner work? And then also this idea of everyone needs you always. Like, you're really doing this for a larger purpose outside of yourself. We all need each other to be doing this inner work. So let's dig in, everyone. The topic today is lose your mind, how the parts of you that run your life go to therapy and say the wrong things. If your therapy doesn't touch this, you could be stuck. So the mind is often not the tool you need to lift emotional content. It is an interpretation specialist, not a truth teller. So I want to use therapy for tool acquisition instead of a hopeful dumping ground. And, moving forward, I'm always going to be promoting the healing that helps you show up, the healing program that I've created. But you can look at all the links for that as we go. Welcome in or welcome back. Holding Space subscription has been on a little pause so that I could be sure I was leading my own life from the parts of self that were agents of change and not the conditioned managers that keep everything, quote, safe. And by safe, I mean in control. Sometimes the mind creates a twisted version of safety. It says, this is handled, or that has a plan. The problem is that the mind doesn't actually feel things. It interprets them. If you're walking into therapy carrying a boatload of feelings that have already been interpreted, explained, analyzed, and organized by protective parts of yourself, you could be on the pathway to stuck. You may sound insightful. You may have a very accurate story about your pain. You may even find yourself saying, I don't know, while somehow overlooking all the things you actually do know and feel underneath the words. This is why I promote democratizing your mental health with the toolbox approach and the phases of healing. It is the program that helps you show up. I know, as someone who dedicated my entire life from 20 to 45 to trauma-informed mental health and healing, that I was the worst therapy goer. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I couldn't talk to myself correctly in my own mind because there were parts that wanted to heal and change, and parts that picked up everyone else's baggage, and parts that said the past could never happen again on my watch, or parts that said keep it all down and just be a good therapist. The subconscious mind also said, you are trapped, your needs don't matter, and ran my life subconsciously, selecting a career as the ultimate caregiver so that core wound could work out quite nicely and keep on being there, bandaged over but not healed. So I'm the first to say it. If therapy hasn't worked yet, you might be part of the problem. I know I was. I didn't have the tools to address the right things or even reveal them to myself. I sensed they were there, but every time they rose up, I became afraid of my own nervous system. As a therapist, I knew how to show up for everyone else, but when it came to myself, I didn't understand that my deep sadness, my patterns, my lonely childhood, or even 6 near-death experiences were not necessarily the thing that needed attention. What needed attention was the relationship between my body, my subconscious beliefs, and the parts of me trying desperately to protect me. For many of us, seeking therapy and avoiding therapy are not as different as they seem. One person stays away because they're afraid of what they'll find, and another goes faithful every week but never lets the real thing into the room. Both are protecting something. When we think about a therapist, we are of the assumption we need the right one. Picking the right therapist, just like picking the right partner, can seem so hard. Some think, why would you want to trust a stranger? Others fall into too much comfort with goodness, and still others don't stay long enough, and the same patterns they have with themselves or in a regular relationship move into the therapy space. For a while, that's your excuse. It's the therapist, the time, or your partner, or job, or other relationships need to change until you meet that good one who is writing an article you read, or you see a YouTube video that lands, or you finally start to get momentum in some other way and realize you keep dealing with the same stuff no matter how many traumas you talk about or resurfaced realizations you have about who you were, how you were raised, and the partnerships you formed, your last job or your first. Here's where things get interesting. The parts of you that run your life are often organized around protecting core wounds. A manager part may overwork because it's protecting an I'm not good enough wound. A people-pleasing part may protect an abandonment wound. An avoidant part may protect a betrayal wound. The problem is that these protective parts often come to therapy and do all the talking. They explain, they intellectualize, they tell stories, they analyze everyone else. Meanwhile, the wound itself never gets a chance to speak. When that happens, therapy can become a conversation between a therapist and your defenses rather than a relationship with the hurt parts underneath them. So I'm suggesting lose your mind. In the healing program, you'll see linked throughout this publication if you're reading, or you can go into the show notes. The first step is taking 2 introductory modules designed to help you use your mind to lose your mind. By that, I mean learning a bottom-up approach to healing. Most of us have spent years trying to think our way into feeling better. The mind keeps interpreting, analyzing, explaining, and organizing our experiences in an effort to stay in control. Meanwhile, the body's experience of those events remains largely unexamined. We have to loosen our grip on the idea that our mind knows everything about us. Try a brief experiment. Look straight ahead and notice your peripheral vision. Without moving your neck, span your eyes. Oh, I did it. All the way to the left and all the way to the right. Then take a small, full breath, allowing your rib cage to expand all around, even in the back. Gently turn your head to the left and to the right. And notice what changes. Perhaps your vision widens, your neck moves more freely, or your body feels slightly different. Just notice what you notice. The point isn't the exercise itself. The point is that your body can shift your experience before your mind has figured anything out. Many of us spend years looking at our lives through a nervous system organized around protection rather than safety. We become experts at explaining ourselves, yet strangers to the version of ourselves that feels regulated enough to see clearly. When your nervous system experiences greater safety, even briefly, you gain access to a different observer. This version of you is often better equipped to reorganize patterns, core wounds, and protective parts without getting stuck in the endless loop of analysis. Instead of asking, why do I keep doing this over and over, you begin developing the capacity to truly see what has been running your life. The mind has been over-interpreting life all this time for more control of what happened. This has led to the use of bad tools for healing and transformation: ego, repression, suppression, and dissociation. These tools were meant to be used in moderation, but they tend to take over if one doesn't get enough of the following inner resources. These resources are peaceful presence, nurturing presence, inner wisdom presence, and or protective presence. At times we do not get enough, but and sometimes we do get enough, but we have leakages and lose these internalized resources, and the bad tools just take over later on in life or at the very start. We have to lose our mind, so to speak. This means we have to lose the idea that it knows so much about things. We have to honor that it has layers, and we can't know them all without tools and time spent building capacity to become a truth seer. So this is the version of you. If you noticed even a slight shift from that brief exercise, you experienced something important. You weren't thinking your way into feeling safer. Your body was giving your mind new information. That's the part many of us miss in healing. We assume the version of us that is anxious, overwhelmed, hypervigilant, numb, or overthinking is seeing our life clearly. We rarely stop to ask what our life might look like from a nervous system that feels safer. For some people, that regulated version of self is so unfamiliar that it feels almost like meeting a stranger. And yet, that is the version of you I want looking at your life. Not the part that is explaining everything. Not the part that has a brilliantly constructed story about why you are the way you are. Not the part that has spent years in therapy saying, look at all these insights I have, while secretly wondering why nothing is changing. The parts that come to therapy are often the very parts that have been managing pain, preventing pain, organizing pain, or avoiding pain. They have important information, but they are not always the best guides to healing. Beneath those parts are often deeper beliefs that have been quietly shaping your life for years without your awareness. So let's look at core wounds. I think of core wounds as the subconscious conclusions we reach about ourselves when painful experiences happen and we don't yet have the ability to understand them fully. As children, we are meaning-making machines. When something hurts and we can't explain it, we tend to explain it through ourselves. A parent is emotionally unavailable, I must not matter. A caregiver is critical, I must not be good enough. Someone leaves, people will always leave before I'm ready. The child doesn't have enough information to understand the complexity of what is happening around them, so they do the only thing they can do, they personalize it. Over time, these conclusions become less like thoughts and more like facts. We stop questioning them. We build our personalities around them. We choose relationships through them. We make decisions through them. We even go to therapy through them. The mind is actually trying to help. Human beings are wired to remember danger more than safety. If a dog chases you down the street, your brain pays attention to the dog, not the followers. Not the flowers. That makes perfect sense when the goal is physical survival. The problem is that emotional wounds are different. A subconscious belief, I am not enough or I don't matter, doesn't create more safety. It simply creates more vigilance. The wound becomes the lens through which we view ourselves, others, and the world. But it won't be obvious you are thinking this. We don't think in core wounds. It is in a different part of the mind called the subconscious. And if we never learn to identify the wound underneath the protective parts of our mind, we can spend years talking about our life while never fully understanding what has been running it. So, what are some common types of core wounds? Core wounds fall into recognizable themes. Most people carry 2 or 3 dominant ones, usually formed before age 7, and each one tends to generate its own cluster of beliefs, emotional reactions, and behaviors in daily life as an adult. These are often forms when our emotional needs aren't met completely as children. The best way to work with them is in a healing program that supports you rather than passively reading alone. Here are the most common types I see in my clients. If you want to use therapy like I believe it was intended before we shrunk our needs into what the insurance company says we're allowed, this tool and more are offered in the healing program that helps you show up. The phases of healing with the toolbox approach. So links again provided in here. A cheat sheet for wounds. The abandonment wound is a deep fear of being left, either physically, emotionally, or both, by the people you love and depend on. How it shows up as an adult: clinging in relationships, intense anxiety when a partner pulls away, reading small signs as rejection, or preemptively leaving before someone leaves you. Rejection wound. Remember, this is just a cheat sheet. The belief that who you are is not acceptable or welcome, and that being fully seen means being cast out. How it shows up as an adult: people-pleasing, shape-shifting to match who you're with, hiding parts of yourself in relationships, and struggling to tolerate disagreement or disapproval. The I am not good enough wound. A subconscious sense that your worth is conditional and tied to what you produce, how you look, or how useful you are to others. I have that too, to a T. How it shows up as an adult: perfectionism, chronic self-doubt, overworking, and a quiet sense of low self-worth that no accomplishment seems to fix. Until recently. The I don't matter wound. The felt sense that your presence, feelings, and needs don't register, that you could disappear and no one would notice. The shame wound. The internalized belief that something is fundamentally wrong with you at your core, not what you've done, but who you are. How it shows up as an adult: hiding, self-sabotage, difficulty receiving love or compliments, and a strong inner critic that pushes you before anyone else can. Betrayal wound. the belief that trust is dangerous and that opening up to someone means eventually being hurt by them. How it shows up as an adult, testing partners, struggling to be vulnerable, holding people at arm's length, even when the relationship is safe, and interpreting small inconsistencies as proof you shouldn't have trusted. The helpless trapped wound. I had this one too, as well as a different one I didn't mention to you all. The sense that you have no agency and that your feelings, choices, and needs don't change what happens to you. How it shows up as an adult, shutting down in conflict, freezing when asked what you want, feeling claustrophobic in close relationships, and avoiding commitment because commitment feels like losing yourself. The safety wound. The body level sense that the world or your body isn't a safe place to be. How it shows up as an adult, hypervigilance, difficulty relaxing, a nervous system that stays braced, trouble trusting stability when it arrives, and anxiety that doesn't seem to have a clear cause. And many women in particular do have a safety wound. And again, everyone, this is just a cheat sheet. I really recommend a healing program, either mine or deeply bringing this into therapy to create a program around it. The program I offer under the scope of the toolbox approach and the phases of healing is such that after you are done with your introductory modules, we move into a monthly subscription of coaching and therapy, which involves co-creating your toolbox and formatting new modules for returning to a classroom experience so you can build capacity between intensity. At times, you'll be in therapy intensives for a month. Twice a month, 80-minute sessions, and at times you'll be in modules. Together, we decide the length of time you spend in the healing program based on various factors and talk about supportive insurance-covered therapy for traditional 45-minute counseling if that's a pause from the program you need or helps you ease out of the program entirely with support. But, healing begins when the parts of you that have been running the show loosen their grip just enough for something deeper to emerge. The goal is not to get rid of these parts. They protected you. Many of them saved your life in the only ways they knew how. The goal is to help them stop carrying jobs that no longer belong to them. Because underneath the manager, the fixer, the caretaker, the performer, the avoider, and the overthinker is often someone who has been waiting a very long time to finally be met. And that person rarely shows up through more thinking. They show up through presence. Thanks for reading or listening or watching Holding Space subscription. The post is also offered, as I mentioned, if you're listening, as a free podcast called Enya, Everyone Needs You Always on Spotify. It is also on YouTube. Head over and follow or share there. We need each other to do this inner work. Yours affects another, so share and pass this on and heal on, everyone.